At that moment, I suddenly noticed a photograph among several mementos inside the coffin. It was a picture of me and my mother-in-law, Haley. As I held the photograph in my hands, tears streaming down my face, something written on the back became visible in the light. What's this? Seeing the words written on the back of the photograph, I was speechless. My name is Cher, a 32-year-old office worker. I've been married to my husband Roy for 3 years. We met at a party, and he was the one who actively pursued me, which led to our dating. After 2 years of dating, we decided to get married. Soon after, we visited each other's parents to announce our marriage. I was extremely nervous when I first met my in-laws. "Oh, nice of you to come." "Nice to meet you. I'm Cher." "Hello, I'm Roy's mother." Haley, who greeted us at the entrance with a warm smile, was the only one there. Although I felt relieved that she seemed nice, my nerves returned when we entered the living room and saw Roy's father, John, sitting there with a stern look. My nervousness came back all at once. I greeted John too, but he just grunted, "Hello, nice to meet you," without changing his expression, as if I were a son-in-law instead of a daughter-in-law. But Haley lightened the mood, saying, "Don't mind him, he's just shy," with a laugh. Then Haley chatted with me and shared stories about Roy, making for a delightful time. John was as reserved as he first appeared, but Haley's presence made it less concerning. Roy was equally nervous when meeting my dad. My mom passed away when I was in high school, and I lived with my dad. Even after graduating college and starting work, I stayed with him, thinking it would be lonely for him alone. Plus, I worried he wouldn't eat properly by himself. My dad is usually sociable and kind, but he too put on a dignified front like John, greeting Roy with a poised demeanor. Seeing my dad like that, Roy remained tense, which I found amusing. After successfully completing the family introductions, we had our wedding and began our life as a couple. We have had a happy marriage without major arguments. Roy, being family-oriented, often took me to visit his parents. Haley always welcomed me with a warm smile. "Cher, welcome." "Hello, Haley." "Mom, I brought some sweets." "Oh, Roy, thanks as always. Let's enjoy them together. I'll make some coffee." "Okay, I'll help." Roy would always help out when visiting his parents, wanting to do everything for them as their only son. Haley seemed pleased with his assistance, always smiling kindly in the kitchen. We would enjoy snacks and dinner together, chatting amiably. "Haley, this dish is delicious." "Thank you. I'm so glad you think so. John never says anything, so I worry if it tastes right." "If it tastes bad, I'd say so." "So if you're silent, it means it's good?" John, perhaps embarrassed, would suddenly become quiet and focus on his meal. Haley watched him with a laugh, and John would grumble, "What's with the staring? Annoying." Haley's laughter at this response made it clear how much she adored John. She was very affectionate towards me, treating me like her own daughter. "You know Roy is our only child. I always wanted a daughter, so I think of you as my real daughter." "I'm glad to hear that." Haley and I occasionally went out together for coffee or shopping. "This combination would look great on you, Cher." Haley had worked as a stylist and fashion coordinator, so she had an excellent sense for choosing clothes. I liked clothes, but often struggled to find what suited me. Shopping with Haley was helpful, as she always picked out clothes that fit me well. Thanks to her, I was able to make very satisfying purchases. Working in an office where I can wear casual clothes, I received many compliments when I wore the outfits Haley picked out for me. Shopping for clothes with a daughter and seeing her wear what I choose was always a dream of mine. I'm so glad Roy married you, Cher. I'm really happy to have you as my mother-in-law. Oh, that's wonderful to hear. How's Roy? Is he causing you any trouble? Not at all. He's working hard. That's good. But if there's anything that concerns you, feel free to talk to me. Even though I'm his mother, I can be impartial. Thank you. It seemed Haley thought of herself as a mother figure to me, given I didn't have a mother, and I too felt she was like a second mother. As our third wedding anniversary approached, I began to think about giving Haley the joy of seeing her grandchild. But then, Roy suddenly received a call from John. What's wrong, Dad? What? Mom? Seeing Roy freeze, I had a terrible premonition. What happened, Roy? Mom. She's passed away. What? It was so sudden. Haley had collapsed unexpectedly and was declared dead at the hospital. Both Roy and I were deeply shocked. At the hospital, the usual stoic John was visibly distraught. How can I live alone now? Dad. John looked like he was about to cry. Despite his usual demeanor, he truly loved Haley. Roy and I comforted John and began preparing for the funeral. I felt a duty to properly farewell Haley, who had treated me like her own daughter. It was an act of filial piety and gratitude, even though she was my mother-in-law. I had wanted to show her a grandchild and go to many more places with her and the family. Just before the funeral began, I peered into the coffin to imprint Haley's face in my memory. One last time. She looked peaceful, like she did when we visited their home. It seemed as if she would wake up if called. At that moment, I noticed a photograph among several mementos in the coffin. It was a photo of Haley and me. I recalled a time at a clothing store when a salesperson recognized Haley, and we took a two-shot wearing the clothes we bought. Haley had gotten the photo printed and kept it with her. I was touched that she cherished our memories so much. As I looked at the photo with tears in my eyes, the light revealed some writing on the back. What's this? I was speechless seeing the words on the back. There was the date of Haley's death, and next to it, the word, completed. I instinctively felt this was something dangerous. It seemed ominous, almost as if it implied Haley had been finished off. What in the world does that mean? Does it mean Haley has been erased? And there was something else that frightened me. The handwriting looked familiar. After the funeral, Roy, John, and I went to Haley's house to sort her belongings. There, the three of us were sorting through Haley's belongings. The conversation was minimal, with the usually bright Haley no longer there. John's eyes were teary, and he looked so lonely. Cher, Roy, thank you. John rarely expressed gratitude. Your mom had many precious things. It would have been hard to sort them alone. John truly loved Haley, even if he didn't say it. Don't worry, Dad. You can always rely on us, Roy said with a gentle smile. Normally, I'd find such kindness reassuring, but at this time, I was filled with fear. But I was filled with terror, because the handwriting on the photo's back was unmistakably Roy's. I discreetly watched Roy's actions, trying not to let him notice. He was excessively searching Haley's room. John initially focused on sorting, but he seemed to realize Roy was looking for something.
What's wrong, Roy? Are you looking for something? Oh no.
Roy seemed flustered when John asked him.
I was just curious about the things Mom cherished. I thought I might keep anything that could serve as a memento. I see. She did have a fondness for little trinkets and jewelry. Feel free to take anything you like.
My husband looks relieved when John says so. Relieved by John's words, Roy resumed searching Haley's room with renewed focus. I was torn about what to do. I suspected Roy, but had no proof he harmed Haley. I couldn't report him based on mere suspicion. And I didn't want to believe that my loving husband, who always smiled so kindly at Haley, could be guilty. But once suspicion took hold, every little thing seemed incriminating, and I became increasingly fearful. Even at home, I was too scared to be at ease around Roy. Amidst this, I unexpectedly received a call from my dad. Dad, what's up?
Sorry to bother you suddenly, Cher. I seem to have hurt my back.
Are you okay?
It's pretty bad. Could you come over and help with the housework for a while?
That bad?
Can you come over?
All right, I understand. I explained the situation to Roy and decided to go to my dad's. Roy said,
It's serious. If something happened to Dad, go ahead.
Though I felt sorry for Dad, I was relieved he hurt his back at this time. It gave me a chance to be away from Roy. I packed some clothes and headed to my parents' house. Upon arriving, I unlocked the door. Dad, I'm here. Are you okay? I called out immediately. Dad walks towards me from the entrance, as if nothing was wrong.
Cher, are you all right?
What do you mean? Aren't you hurt?
That was a lie.
A lie?
I noticed something was off with you at Roy's mother's funeral, especially right before it started. And Roy was acting strange too, but differently. What's on your mind? Did you find something suspicious about Roy?
Hearing this, I felt my tension unravel and almost collapsed. Dad quickly supported me and led me to the sofa. Thanks, Dad.
It's okay. You must be exhausted. Can you tell me what's been bothering you?
I explained about the writing on the back of the photo.
I see. This needs investigating.
Dad immediately started making a call. Actually, Dad's profession is a detective. Dad then called the specialized agency to request a handwriting analysis on the text in the photo.
Cher, stay here for a while. I'll look into this matter.
Okay, I understand. I calmly informed Roy that Dad's condition wasn't great, so I'd be staying at my parents' for a while. Roy accepted this without suspicion. Meanwhile, Dad began investigating Haley's death. Out of the blue, Roy showed up at my parents' house. Roy, what are you doing here?
I was just worried about your dad's condition.
Right. His back's getting better, but it'll take time to fully recover.
Can I greet him?
No, he's sleeping right now.
I see.
Roy's smile didn't reach his eyes.
Why is the chain locked? We're married, right? Why are you so guarded?
I'm not being guarded.
Then let me in.
I can't do that.
Cher, are you hiding something? You haven't said anything strange to John, have you?
Like what?
Like, I killed my mother.
When he said that, his face was no longer smiling. My heart pounded wildly. I was glad I had locked the chain.
I can't have you spreading weird rumors. Besides, your John is with the police, right? It'd be a problem if the investigation reached me due to some baseless suspicion.
Baseless suspicion? I already found out about the huge debt you were hiding. And you frequently asked Haley to help with repayments, didn't you? Did you kill Haley to claim her life insurance because you couldn't repay it all? That would be despicable. You took the life of Haley, who cared so much for you, just to settle your debts? You murderer! I couldn't hold back any longer. Even though I knew it might put me in danger, I couldn't forgive my husband for killing Haley, who was also dear to me. Then Roy started trembling violently.
So you know that much. Then I'll have to kill you too,
he said, and began trying to force open the entrance door. Of course it wouldn't open due to the chain, but the look in my husband's eyes filled me with fear. They were no longer the eyes of a normal person, but those of a criminal determined to kill me. I hurriedly moved away from there and found a safe place to hide inside the house.
Hey, don't run away. Your dad isn't here right now, is he? I'll kill you before he gets back.
I immediately took out my mobile phone and called Dad. Dad, help! Roy has come to the house. As I spoke to Dad, a loud crash echoed, followed by the sound of footsteps on broken glass. I held my breath. Making any noise would reveal my hiding place.
Hey, Cher, where are you? Answer me.
I hear my husband's voice, Roy's voice, and the sound of something like a weapon striking the walls or doors could be heard. I covered my mouth to prevent any sound from escaping. But soon, he found where I was. The sound of the doorknob rattling reached my ears.
Ah, hiding in the bathroom, are you? Hey, Cher, unlock the door. Don't make this hard on me.
When I remained silent and didn't respond, a loud bang suddenly came through the bathroom door. The sound repeated, and the bathroom shook violently. He was probably hitting the door with something just like before.
Come out already.
His angry shouts and the sounds of him hitting the door alternated. I trembled in fear, praying that the door would not break. But the door started creaking under the strain. This isn't good. The door will break and he'll get in. Just then, I heard a sound like something falling.
Stop. Ugh!
Roy's voice was followed by another man's.
Suspect apprehended.
It seemed the police had arrived. Then I was told by the police to come out, and I left the bathroom. Roy was handcuffed and being put into a patrol car outside.
Cher.
Dad! Seeing Dad, I instinctively hugged him.
I'm glad you're safe.
I was relieved to be alive. Roy was arrested on the spot and later faced charges for Haley's death. He confessed during police questioning and was convicted. Roy had hidden his gambling addiction from me. He had accumulated debts, repaying them with Haley's help, only to incur more debts. He killed Haley for the life insurance money. He poisoned her, adding powdered pesticide to her coffee or tea whenever he brought gifts to his parents. He poisoned her, adding powdered pesticide to her coffee or tea whenever he brought gifts to his parents. That's how Haley collapsed one day and lost her life.
Cher, I'm sorry for my foolish son. I can't express how sorry I am for the terror he caused you.
John apologized. Please lift your head. You're suffering the most. We managed to put him in prison. We avenged Haley, I said, unable to stop my tears. Roy will never leave prison, but thinking of Haley and John, who lost his beloved wife, fills me with indescribable sorrow. Roy should spend his life in prison reflecting on his crimes. I regularly visit John, staring at Haley's memorial photo. Haley was like a real mother to me. Haley, I'll always treasure the clothes you picked out for me. Even today, In both my professional and personal life, I wear the outfits Haley coordinated for me, often recalling her gentle smile.
My name is Natalie. I am 28 years old, and I work as a freelancer. I met my husband when I was still working at my company. He fell in love with me at first sight because of our business relationship. He said, "I like your face." Well, I can't say I wasn't flattered, so I took him up on his offer. That is how our relationship started. My husband was very kind to me when we were dating and always tried to please me. Then, right before we got married, I quit my job. I had been busy in the company all my life, so I turned to freelancing, which I had always longed to do. Well, I learned later that freelancers are busy too. I thought that freelancing from home would be better for me because I would be able to watch over my child and keep them close by my side when he or she was born. But my mother-in-law didn't seem very amused with the idea. She complained about the fact that I never worked outside the home. Every time I went back to my in-laws' house, she would ignore me. But my father-in-law, Alex, he was on my side. "You have to be a very capable person to earn money from home. Natalie must be very talented. You graduated from a good university and worked for a major company when you entered the workforce." Even if you say that, it's lazy of her to stay at home all the time while I'm still working part-time. Well, I wouldn't say that. You work hard, don't you, Natalie? Of course. I mean, I don't know if I'm the best or not, but I'm doing the best that I can. What is that supposed to mean? Apparently, my mother-in-law was offended by his praise of me. My mother-in-law was scowling. My husband, who was standing beside her, was absorbed in playing a game on his smartphone the whole time. My mother-in-law was talking to my husband in a cat-like voice. "My Derek, why did you take a lazy person like this Natalie as your wife?" Well, what can I say? I like her face, and she can do the housework well, too. Is that so? But I don't think she is that beautiful. Well, I thought I'd have to settle for an ugly woman because no one would ever look at me like that. Oh, wow, Derek. You could have gotten a super beautiful woman, couldn't he? Well, she earns a lot of money, even working from home. Oh, if she is making that much money, then I'll ask her to buy me a new bag. While my husband and mother-in-law were talking about this, my father-in-law became angry. "What have you been saying all this time? Aren't you ashamed of yourself?" "I don't know what's so good about a woman like Natalie." "I have a high opinion of Natalie, so don't look at me." "No, you don't. You won't even stand up for her. Do you enjoy listening to others talk down about her? I'm so mad at you. Natalie, you don't have to listen to them." "Yes, thank you. You can get a divorce if you want. You don't even have kids yet." "What? What are you talking about?" "If you divorce, there will be bad rumors about you." "You guys only think about yourselves. Enough!" My father-in-law yelled and marched to the study angrily. My husband and his mother kept chatting back and forth, ignoring me. I was thinking in my heart that I wanted to go back to my parents' house as soon as possible. One day, I decided to tell my husband what was on my mind. Look, I'm not going to your parents' house to be ignored. She's not ignoring you. What are you being paranoid about? She is. Your mother-in-law is always complaining about my work, and she's always complaining to you about me. Are you saying you don't respect your husband's parents? That's right. Well, I don't respect your mother, just my father-in-law. Huh? Your father is always on my side, but you and your mother-in-law are always talking down about me. That's not true. You are delusional. At this point, I was ready to divorce him. I was even prepared to return to my parents' home at any time. When my husband realized that, he said, I won't allow you to divorce me. I won't let you go back to your parents' house. He yelled at me. It seems to me that he has no respect for me, so why doesn't he want to divorce me? If you think you love a more beautiful woman, then let's get a divorce. When my mother-in-law complains about me all the time, you don't just cover for her, you go along with her. It was a slow day at work one day, so I went to City Hall to get my divorce papers. I immediately went home, filled out my section, and called my parents. My parents were furious to learn that my husband and mother-in-law had said such things about me. I didn't think you were this kind of man. I didn't let her marry you to be snubbed, they said in a strong tone. When my husband came home from work, I showed him the divorce papers. I told him to fill it out quickly because I wanted a divorce immediately. Hey, what are you doing? What's wrong with you? Are you hysterical? What? What are you talking about? I don't know why I'm with you. I care about you. All I ever do is think about you, Natalie. All I could say was, you're lying. Because, in fact, my husband is cheating on me. I only realized it recently. I was brushing my teeth when I noticed he left his phone in the dressing room. I didn't want to see it, but I happened to see a message. I want to make out with you again. Your kiss was so good. It made me feel like a god. It said. To be honest, it was so creepy that I was really turned off by it. If I forwarded those messages to my phone, I would be exposed. So I took a picture of the message and airdropped it to my phone. Then I used a credit agency to investigate my husband's behavior. It seemed that my husband was seeing a young girl at work. And it wasn't just one. He was involved with several girls. He has a type. Under 30, tall and pretty in the face. He had a rotten heart. I almost lost my temper, but I thought, if I were to try giving him divorce papers now, he'll just ignore them again. So I decided to go back to my parents' house to try to mediate the divorce. One Saturday, my husband suggested that we go to my in-laws' house again. My mother-in-law just ignores me anyway, and I don't want to go. My mom wants me to come over today. Oh, really? Well, don't be like that. Just get ready. I love getting ready just to be ignored. Nobody's ignoring you. It's all in your head. At least I have your father to talk to. He is very kind. What? That sounds like you're making my mom out to be a bad person. Well, I'm sorry, but that's how I feel. I remember that my father-in-law had recently expressed an interest in blogging, so I took my laptop with me. He's not even 60, and he still seems to be unfamiliar with the idea of how to create and write a blog. If I bring my laptop, maybe I can do my work and even teach my father-in-law about blogging. When we arrive at my in-laws' house, my mother-in-law gave my husband a hug and offered him tea. Well, there was no tea for me. I laughed to myself because she was so obviously disgusted with me. Wow, so this is how you make a blog. Yes, it's easier than you think. I thought it would be more difficult. Is tagging very difficult? Well, it's easy once you get used to it. Oh, Natalie, I'm sorry for asking you all about your blog when you have work to do. No, it's fine. He brought his own laptop computer and seemed to be trying to get started creating his blog right away. I went on with my work while watching him. My mother-in-law looked at me sideways and said, I can do that kind of thing myself. It's just a simple job of typing. That was sarcasm if I ever heard it. When I responded, she ignored me again. So I said, sarcastically, no need to be rude. After that, my husband kept insisting again and again we go to his parents' house. But I really don't want to go. It's my mother's birthday today. Oh, yeah. What's the matter with you? Let's go. I'm not going. What? I told you, I'm not going. Your father's nice, but I don't want your mother to be sarcastic with me or ignore me at every turn. What the hell? You're really out of your mind. You're the one who's crazy. What's the matter with you? You're a really lousy wife. You're the one who should go away. My husband suddenly became angry and left the house snarling. I hurriedly packed my belongings into my overnight bag. My husband wanted to get the hell out of there and left to his parents' house. Up until now, he had always interfered with my attempts to return to my parents' house, so this was my chance to leave. Does he not care about me, but doesn't want to get divorced because it would be a shame on his family? Or does he feel guilty because of the affair? Well, it doesn't matter. I'm going to get a huge alimony payment out of him. When I returned home, my parents told me that they would never let me see my in-laws again. Then, when I told them that my husband was cheating on me, they got angry and turned red. I can't believe he was such a lousy man, they cursed. After a while, my husband came home and called me. Hey, where are you? Where are you? And why is your stuff missing? Oh, I'm not going home anymore. I'm at my parents' house. What? What are you talking about? Are you stupid? Going back to your parents' house? Oh, you're the one who's stupid. Not only do you look down on me, you're cheating on me too. Well, you thought you were a good kisser? Huh, I had to pretend all these years, but ever since the first time I kissed you, I thought you were a lousy kisser. Why would you say that? I don't care. Oh, that's disgusting. I'm divorcing you already. Wait, if you do that, you'll ruin my reputation. You're so full of yourself, aren't you? A few hours after I hung up the phone, my husband arrived with my in-laws. When my mother-in-law was about to say something, Alex said to my father, Sir, I'm really sorry for everything we've done. I'm sorry I couldn't help Natalie further. Hey, who do you think you are? I can't believe how stupid my wife and son have been. Stop it! Actually, I've been wanting a divorce from my wife, too, and you gave me the push I needed. What? It seems that my wife has been having an affair with the manager of the store where she worked part-time. When Alex, my father-in-law, found out about it recently, he was wondering when he was going to divorce her. My mother-in-law was in tears, begging me not to divorce her son. But then my husband and mother-in-law started to lose their tempers. They were both stunned, and my parents were also aghast. After that, my husband and I divorced. Then, Alex, my father-in-law, divorced my mother-in-law. My ex-husband and my mother-in-law were both cheating on their spouses, so they were both charged a lot of alimony. My mother-in-law is working hard for the alimony, taking more part-time jobs like when she was young. My ex-husband resigned from his job and is now looking for work. My ex-husband and mother-in-law are living together in a studio apartment. They seem to be a good match. I am in the process of looking for a good place to live while living at my parents' house. If I can find true love, I'm hopeful about getting married again.
Believe it or not, this restaurant is ours and it's meant for my oldest son and his wife. If you don't like it, then get a divorce,
yelled my husband in a fit of rage. Following him, my husband's brother, now called Mike, made his arrogant claim.
I'm part of this family too, you know. Surely I deserve some part in the restaurant.
Not to be left out, Mike's wife Karen also berated me. You don't deserve to run such a fine establishment. Get out already. I felt a surge of anger within me. I couldn't care less about what happened to these people. I decided there and then to put them in their place once and for all. The first order of business to correct their misguided notions. I can't help but smirk at the thought of the look on their faces when they find out the truth. My name is Natalie Farrell. At 35, I'm running a sushi restaurant. I have many regular customers and thankfully the business is doing well. The shop was originally started by my grandparents. Both of my parents passed away from illness when I was young, so my grandparents became my guardians. As I helped out in the shop, I became interested in becoming a sushi chef and taking over the shop. After graduating from the culinary school, I started working in the restaurant immediately. I learned how to make sushi from my grandfather and how to serve customers from my grandmother. Thanks to their guidance, I became a competent chef and developed proper etiquette. For a while, the three of us ran the shop. But when I turned 23, a man named Steve Farrell came to our shop. He was 5 years older than me. He used to be a sushi chef, but the shop he had been working at had closed down, so he was looking for a new job. My grandparents were considering retirement due to their old age. They had mentioned that they wanted one more employee, so we decided to hire him. His skills were undeniable, and he quickly became a valuable asset. I learned a lot from him, and we eventually grew close and got married when I was 25. My grandparents thought Steve was a reliable and honest man and they felt secure with him. Our married life went well, and after my grandparents retired, we continued to run the shop together, supporting each other. However, when I was 31, my grandmother passed away from an illness. The following year, my grandfather also passed away. Since then, my husband's attitude started to change gradually. When I was in the kitchen, he would become grumpy and started saying things like,
You should focus on serving the customers. I want to hone my sushi making skills, so I want to be in the kitchen as much as possible.
Since he was so passionate about sushi, I understood and began to take over more of the serving duties. However, the real reason behind my husband's change of attitude was something different. About half a year later, I overheard him saying something on the phone.
Natalie is a woman, right? I don't like the fact that she's a sushi chef.
I was very sad. I was shocked to learn that my loving husband thought this way about me. Sushi is a traditional dish and there's a strong tradition of male dominance. in this field, therefore the number of female sushi chefs is low. However, this attitude is starting to change and there are more restaurants accepting female chefs. And I believe I am able to provide sushi that satisfies our customers. I wish he wouldn't dislike me just because I'm a woman. After hanging up the phone, my husband finally noticed my presence and hastily tried to gloss over his comments.
I was just stressed out and said it without thinking. I promise I won't say it again. Will you forgive me?
Seeing him seemingly regretful, I decided to forgive him. However, my husband started causing more problems. One day, I noticed that $3,000 had been withdrawn from our savings account. When I confronted him, he said,
My brother Mike lost his job and I had to help him out. He's family after all. There's nothing we can do.
Frankly, I didn't like it. The reason being, Mike is a problematic person. He initially aimed to be a chef, but quit early due to the rigorous training and has been job hopping ever since. Every time we met, he would ask for money, and he gave off a very irresponsible impression. His wife, Karen, also can't hold a job. Despite this, she always had an aggressive attitude towards me, saying things like, "You must be so tired from working all the time. I'm a housewife, so I enjoy my free life." I wondered if there was any need to support these people with hundreds of thousands of dollars. They're adults and they're healthy. I wish they could figure it out for themselves. Our restaurant was profitable, but our savings were steadily decreasing. At first, when I pointed out to him that he was giving too much, he seemed to reflect on his behavior and said, "Sorry." But later on, he said,
Natalie, you're the one managing our savings and household budget, right? You should just manage it better.
and refused to listen to my advice. The situation with my husband was getting worse, and I was starting to worry seriously about our future savings. I briefly considered divorce, but eventually decided against it. Steve is an excellent craftsman, and without him, our restaurant would suffer. Besides, Steve has always been a responsible person. I clung to this thin hope that he would pull himself together someday. Later, I would realize how naive this thought was. Years have passed since my grandparents passed away, and we arrive at the present day. At this point, an event occurred that I could no longer tolerate. On our restaurant's day off, while I was doing the laundry at home, the doorbell rang. When I opened the door, there stood Mike and Karen.
Hey, from today on, I can eat sushi every day now, right? Lucky me.
Their words made no sense. As I was at a loss, Steve appeared and I demanded an explanation. Casually, he said,
They will be living with us for a while from today on.
I was even more confused. Upon further inquiry, I learned that Mike and Karen were in dire financial straits and couldn't even afford their apartment rent. Upon learning this, Steve had taken it upon himself to allow them to stay with us for a while. What's more, neither Mike nor Karen were working, so we were expected to cover their living expenses as well. I told Steve, "Don't make decisions like that without discussing with me first." But he shrugged it off, saying,
They're our family, so it doesn't matter.
and so their cohabitation began forcibly. Needless to say, my stress levels skyrocketed. Not only this, but Steve took Mike and Karen to our restaurant and allowed them to eat expensive sushi for free. They ate up sushi without a care in the world, chattering and making noise. Steve even announced in front of our other customers,
I'll treat my brother and Karen.
even our regular customers seemed to find this odd. One of our regulars, a man named Tucker, frowned and warned Steve.
Steve, it's not right to let them eat for free just because they're your family. It will affect the restaurant's business, won't it?
Steve pretended to reflect upon his words, saying,
I'm sorry.
Tucker is our regular customer, and we have been close since I was a child. He's like a beloved grandfather to me, and he's always there for me, saying,
If you ever have a hard time, feel free to talk to me.
However, despite Tucker's warning, Steve didn't stop giving preferential treatment to Mike and Karen. Steve never scolded Mike and always showed a soft smile towards Karen. Watching Steve like this, a suspicion began to form in my mind. I hope I was just misunderstanding, but my suspicion would later prove correct. When my stress was at its breaking point, a major incident occurred. One day off, Steve, Mike, and Karen told me they had important news.
Actually, we've decided to hand over our restaurant to Mike and Karen. It's been Mike's dream to become a chef, and we thought it would be a good idea.
I felt dizzy. Running a restaurant is tough. I couldn't believe that Mike and Karen could manage it. And I didn't want to give the restaurant that we inherited from our grandparents to people like them. I firmly told them. Then Steve, Mike, and Karen all became furious. Steve yelled at me loudly.
That's my restaurant. What I do with it is my business. Whether you like it or not, the restaurant will belong to Mike and Karen. If you don't like it, get a divorce.
Mike also arrogantly said,
I'm part of the family too, right? Just give me the restaurant.
Karen berated me, saying, You're not worthy of that restaurant. Get out quickly. I was filled with intense anger. I no longer cared what happened to these people. I decided to retaliate against them once and for all. First, I decided to correct the three's misunderstanding. I chuckled to myself, wondering what their faces would look like once they learned the truth. I don't know what you guys are misunderstanding, but the restaurant is something I inherited from my grandparents. It's in my name, so I can't transfer it to Steve, Mike, or Karen. As I explained this, my husband looked surprised.
But I'm your husband. I should have the right to do as I please with the restaurant.
Inheritances go to blood relatives. Since we don't have children, my inheritance is mine alone. Steve finally seemed to understand the mechanics of inheritance and was stunned. I was almost dumbfounded by his lack of common sense because Steve was so dedicated to sushi he lacked some common knowledge. I have often felt this way in our married life. Then, Mike started to make a fuss.
Hey, you should have explained this beforehand.
I finally raised my voice in anger. What? You guys were the ones who proceeded with the conversation based on your misunderstandings. You didn't even give me the time to explain. What are you saying? Annoyingly, Mike tried to counter further.
But we don't care about whose name it's in. We can run the restaurant on our own. You're no longer needed, so get out.
I really decided to leave if I stayed here any longer. I thought I might explode with anger. I packed only the essentials, said goodbye, and stormed out of the house. After leaving the house, I initially stayed in a cheap business hotel. There, I strategized about what to do next. I had no desire to make amends with Steve. I had finally realized that the kind Steve was nowhere to be found. I don't know if that was his true nature or if something had twisted his personality. But suddenly, I felt foolish for trusting such a horrible man. I wanted to punish him. I also wanted Mike and Karen to leave my house. I wondered how I could drive them out. After thinking about it, I made various calls and formally launched a revenge plan. I also went out for a bit, and after about a week, my preparations were complete. So I returned home. Seeing me, Steve and the couple looked triumphant. Steve smirked and looked at me.
Hey, finally reflecting and came back, huh? But returning in just a week, you lack resolve.
Hearing this, the couple laughed heartily. Suppressing my anger, I showed them several photos. They were stunned at that moment, but Steve and Karen's faces turned pale. Meanwhile, Mike asked in confusion,
What are these photos?
These are photos proving Steve and Karen's affair, I declared in a cold tone. The photos showed Steve and Karen walking arm in arm, appearing to enjoy themselves. The other photos also captured their intimate moments. Mike finally seemed to understand the situation and began to blush in anger.
Hey, what is this? You have betrayed me with an affair?
Mike's anger was fierce. However, Steve didn't apologize but instead doubled down.
Shut up. It can't be helped. I fell in love. You were wandering around outside and I happened to go out with Karen.
Karen also began making pitiful excuses. It's your fault for not working. Compared to that, Steve is a respectable artisan. It's clear who I would choose. Karen hasn't been working either, and Steve, who's having an affair, is not someone trustworthy at all. I was beyond angry and more disgusted. The three of them had started a low-level argument, and it seemed like it was spiraling out of control. Somehow, I managed to calm them down despite the frustration bubbling within me. Once he had calmed down a bit, my husband glared at me.
How did you get these photos? You've been following us?
No, I replied. I hired a detective to gather evidence of your affair. That's how I got these pictures. So that's why I had been visiting a detective agency. My husband ranted.
Hiring a detective is coward.
But the real coward was my adulterous husband. Well, it's unlikely he would understand that. Then Mike asked a question.
How did you realize my brother was having an affair? You must have suspected something to hire a detective.
I let out a chuckle. Of course, I could tell we are married after all. I noticed right away how excessively sweet he was acting around Karen. The smile he had for her was completely different from the one he showed me or our customers. My husband was speechless. He must have thought he wouldn't get caught. In his shock, he revealed too much in front of my grandparents. How he had acted as innocent as a cat, how he had married me for my shop, how he didn't really love me, and so on. I looked at him coldly, my heart aching. Despite loving you so much, I was betrayed by you. I have endured a lot of pain. Do you understand how much I have suffered? Can you imagine how much you have made me worry? At my harsh words, my husband finally fell silent. He looked remorseful, but I had no intention of forgiving him. Steve and Karen were silent too, probably feeling awkward. Finally, there was some quiet, and I continued. I will be claiming damages from both Karen and Steve. Be prepared. At these words, Karen erupted, Wait, I have no money. How can you claim damages from someone like me? I cut off Karen's words. All you have to do is work and earn money. You can pay in installments. It's inconceivable to hurt someone and not make amends. Karen, looking shocked, could only manage a weak, okay, and then fell silent again. I took out the divorce papers I had already filled out and made my husband fill in the necessary parts. All I have to do now is submit these to the office, and I can say goodbye to the bothersome man. The matter of the affair was now more or less settled. However, there was still something left to be done by the three of them. I asked them, You didn't just cause me trouble, did you? The three of them looked clueless. They really didn't seem to understand, so I reluctantly explained, You treated the customers of our shop poorly, right? I have been in regular contact with our regulars over the past week, and they all voiced their complaints. The main complaints were that despite the many mistakes, they never apologized, and they loudly insulted customers in the staff-only area. There was even a claim that Mike tried to steal change. When I told them about these complaints, their faces turned pale. Since you have caused so much trouble for our valued customers, I will have you apologize. I'm going to call our regulars now and have you apologize. I pulled out my phone and started making calls. First, I briefly explained the situation, and then my husband, Mike, and Karen apologized in that order. We repeated this process several times. All of our regulars were understandably angry at the three, so the apology took much longer than expected. I knew Tucker's address, so I had them go and apologize to him directly. When Tucker saw the three, he raised his voice.
You were absolutely terrible. How dare you face people with that attitude? No matter how delicious your sushis are, I will never have them again.
Then he looked at me and smiled kindly.
Natalie, you should cut ties with these people. Even if Steve leaves, a more skilled artisan will come to your place.
Yes, I am divorcing my husband too. Thank you for all your help. I'm truly grateful. Before carrying out this plan, I had also sought advice from Tucker, which had proven immensely helpful. I thanked him deeply. After leaving Tucker's house, I made sure to let Mike, Steve, and Karen know that I had reported all their misdeeds, including their infidelity, to our regulars. You three might want to continue working as chefs, but I don't think our regulars will be visiting your restaurants. If they tell others, those people probably won't either, I said. Adding insult to injury, even if the three didn't run a restaurant, The mental damage of their embarrassment being known to so many people would be significant. I told them to pack their things and get out immediately, which they did. After they were kicked out, they seemed to get into a heated argument about what to do next. They were making such a commotion in the street that the police were called and they were taken away. They were trouble to the end. The three didn't end up with criminal records, but they did split up and started living separately. Mike and Karen got divorced too. I submitted the divorce papers to the government office and cleanly cut ties with my husband. Mike is still unemployed and living a poor life. I heard he's struggling daily to dodge debt collectors because of the substantial debt he owes. As I promised, I demanded alimony from my husband and Karen. Karen seems to have found a job for now. However, she was unemployed for a long time, so she can't suddenly become a high earner, and her salary seems to be quite low compared to her peers. My husband also managed to find a job and relocated to a remote state where he didn't know anyone. Yet rumors have a way of leaking out, and their past wrongdoings became known, leaving them with no place to hide. In particular, my husband and Karen have to keep working to pay their debts. I imagine their days are tougher than they expected. I hope they suffer. Even after my husband left, the restaurant is doing well. My regulars who learned about the incident started coming to the restaurant more frequently to support me. I had fewer chances to be in the kitchen due to my husband, but I have been practicing in secret, so my skills haven't deteriorated. The enjoyable days have returned and I'm living a fulfilling life. We have also gained a new employee. She's a girl who just graduated from vocational school. She's still an apprentice and has a lot to learn, but I sense a flair in her. Her attitude towards the customers is excellent, so she is well regarded among the regulars. Since we're both women, we found it easier to connect with each other, and she sometimes confides in me about her worries. I think we're building a good relationship. I even consider having her inherit the restaurant in the future, but I intend to keep doing my best as an active chef for now. While cherishing this restaurant that I inherited from my grandparents, I wanted to keep growing both as a sushi chef and as an individual.
My husband betrayed me. My girlfriend is having a baby, so pack up and leave. He coldly told me so. Are you sure you won't regret this? No way. Just get out of here. He sneered, laughing off my final plea. If that's how he wants to play it, I no longer have any obligation to consider his feelings. I accepted the divorce and moved back to my parents' house. But at that time, I didn't know what was coming next. Who could have imagined that the very next day, he'd be at my door, begging for forgiveness? My name is Lily. My father is an executive at a publicly traded company. After graduating from university, I got a job at a company run by one of my father's acquaintances. It was nepotism, yes, but I worked hard to learn the job so as not to be the subject of gossip. Eventually, my colleagues and seniors began to accept me. I even started to enjoy my work, spending my days in a fulfilling way. Meanwhile, my father seemed worried that I, being totally devoted to work and lacking any romantic relationship, was living a one-sided life. He introduced me to a man named John, who was the most capable among his subordinates, and arranged a dating between us. John is the most successful young man in the team. No, it's all thanks to my superiors and seniors who guide me. My father and John seemed to trust each other. At first, I agreed to date John out of respect for my father, but as I got to know him, I began to think that marrying him might bring happiness. As we went on several dates, I admired how he took the lead. Yes, I was gradually drawn to John. Once my father realized how I felt, he encouraged our marriage. John, honestly, what do you think of my daughter? Well, I am dating her with the intention of marriage. Everything progressed smoothly after John announced his intention to marry me in front of my father. Every time they met, my father and John would happily discuss wedding venues and plans for a new home. Seeing my father like this made me feel that getting married might not be a bad idea. Before our marriage, John gave me a condition. I want you to quit your job and become a full-time housewife. I was reluctant to give up my beloved job, but I really wanted to marry him. So I decided to accept his condition. As soon as we got married, John's attitude towards me changed. To be honest, I didn't want to get married this early. I couldn't believe what I heard. Huh? But you were considering marriage. That's why you agreed to meet me. I only agreed because your father asked me to. I can't refuse my boss's request, can I? John continued with a frown. With your father so enthusiastic, how could I refuse to marry you? Besides, marrying you should secure my career advancement. So you married me for a career advancement? Of course! Why else would I marry a boring woman like you? He scoffed. I was left speechless. I had quit my job and had no income. I had lost my confidence and couldn't retort. Eventually, he stopped coming home and began to frequently go out drinking. When I asked where he was going, he simply said, "It's none of your business." From the perfume he smelled of when he came, it was clear he was seeing women nearly every night. Yet, he showed no signs of having an affair with a particular woman. It was probably just business-related. I convinced myself. As the wife of a capable man, I thought I had to tolerate this kind of behavior. I tried not to think about it as much as possible. Still, it was a fact that I was struggling with a marriage full of forbearance. I wanted to spill all my troubles to someone, but having quit my job and distanced myself from my friends, I had no one to confide in. If I turned to my family, my father would surely worry excessively, and it might affect John's work. I had no choice but to suffer in silence. Around this time, John was promoted to a division manager at an unusually fast pace. I was glad I hadn't brought up anything strange to my father. Hearing about his promotion was a relief to me. With the promotion confirmed, John had been in good spirits at home lately. Although he still rarely came home, the reduction in his sarcastic remarks and criticisms alone was a blessing. However, I realized that John's cheerfulness was not only due to his promotion. While he was in the bath, I accidentally saw a notification on his unlocked phone. I had so much fun today. I miss you already, even though we just parted. I'm looking forward to our sleepover this weekend. It was a message filled with heart symbols. A message clearly from someone he was having an affair with. The text read, "This weekend is a sleepover." He had told me, "I won't be home this weekend due to a business trip." After confirming John's infidelity, I checked the name of the sender. The sender of the message was someone named Kathy. Afterwards, I decided to find out who Kathy was. Fortunately, John seemed to have no idea that I knew about the affair. He continued to exchange lovey-dovey messages with Kathy without even setting a lock on his phone. From their messages, I was able to determine Kathy's address and full name. Kathy Brown? The name rang a bell, but where had I heard it? As I was desperately trying to remember, a photo of the two of them was sent to John's phone. When I saw the picture of Kathy, I inadvertently let out a gasp. Kathy was the daughter of the president of one of our clients. I had met her once at a company party, and her flashy dress had left a deep impression on me. I couldn't believe that John's affair was with Kathy. It was hard to believe, but the photo, name, and place all matched. There was no doubt about it. But Kathy, I remember the rumors about her. I had to tell John the truth. I told him I had something important to talk about and asked him to come home early. Unusually, John came home without protest and started talking before I could say anything. "I actually have something to tell you too," John said with a solemn look on his face. "My girlfriend is pregnant, so I've decided to leave you and be with her." What? He had taken the initiative before I could talk to him. His girlfriend must be Kathy. But she's pregnant? To my surprise, he said, "It's already decided. I've always been appeasing your father, but after meeting her, I realized how pointless my marriage life with you was. She is the one who's suitable for me, not a woman like you who has nothing to offer. She has everything." "So, you're divorcing me?" "Yeah, that's right. You need to leave this house." I asked John, thinking it was my last chance. "Are you sure about this? You won't regret it?" At that, John burst out laughing. "Regret? There's no way, right? Let me tell you something good. My girlfriend is the president's daughter. She's in a different league from your father, who's just an executive." "Didn't you respect my father?" "Respect? That's just a pose for promotion. If I marry her, I'll become the next president of her company. I can quit my current job anytime, huh? In other words, I no longer need to butter up your father. I don't mind if he ridicules me, but I thought he would be sincere about my father and his work. I can't believe he didn't even have that much sincerity. The moment I found out that, my feelings towards John cooled off. So, I won't say anything anymore. Do as you like. Yeah, I'll do what I want to do. You don't have to tell me to do. Ha! Even though I didn't ask, John began to talk about her incessantly. She never told me she was pregnant. Was she considerate of my marriage? Then, how did you find out she was pregnant? I happened to find an echo picture in her bag. She probably intended to give birth alone out of consideration for me. What a courageous woman. Completely smitten with Kathy, John was determined to divorce me as soon as possible and proposed to her. He even prepared the divorce papers. If that's what John wants, it's actually convenient for me. I'm tired of seeing his face too. John signed the divorce paper with satisfaction and immediately submitted them to the court. After he was gone, I quickly packed my stuff and headed for my parents' house. And so, my married life with John ended just like that, I thought. The call from John to my mobile phone came the next night. Lily, where are you now? Where? I'm at my parents' house. What's wrong? At your parents'. I see. Can you come by to the nearby diner right now? I have something important to talk about. Why don't you come here if you have something to talk about? I can't do that. Please come. It's a request for a lifetime. Reluctantly, I headed to the designated diner. There was John, who had completely lost his energy. As soon as he saw my face, he said, Lily, get back together with me. What? I got stunned, but John began to speak, painfully. Actually, she turned down my proposal. I swallowed the words. I knew it. She had a fiancé that her parents had arranged. From the beginning, I was just a game to her. Yeah, I know. Also, the child in her stomach wasn't mine. I had suspected that from the moment I heard she was pregnant. It was a well-known story in our company that Kathy was engaged to a rich man from another company. When I found out that Kathy was John's mistress, I tried to tell John about it, but before I could, John quickly dumped me and tried to switch to Kathy. There was no obligation to kindly tell him the truth. Knowing this would happen, I kept silent all along. Kathy chose me as a playmate because I'm a married man, thinking there would be no strings attached. When I told her I divorced my wife, she coldly brushed me off, saying, "Are you an idiot?" I don't feel sorry for John, who was depressed. He brought it on himself. Well, you can't compare to a rich young man, can you? Then John looked at me in surprise. How did you know that Kathy's fiancé is a rich young man? I told John that Kathy is the daughter of our company's client. No one in the company doesn't know that Kathy is engaged to a rich young man. I never dreamed that you and Kathy were having an affair. You knew? Why didn't you tell me? I was going to tell you when I noticed you were having an affair with Kathy, but before I could, you told me to get out. Was that the important talk at that time? That's why I asked. Don't you regret it? You scoffed at me and answered, I don't. Remember? So I was relieved and able to easily tell my family the reason for the divorce. Huh. Did you tell this to your father, too? Of course I did. What have you done? It's not too late yet. Take back what you said. Tell him it was a mistake. Don't be foolish. It's too late. Dad is furious. Well, you don't care what my dad thinks about you now. That's not true. I'm telling you, I want to make amends. It's too late. I have no intention of starting over with you. I refuse to be with a man like you, who changes his marriage partner based on his parents' title. But, besides, your true nature is already exposed to my father. I've told him everything, including when you said, I can quit my current job anytime. Is that a lie? Actually, my father said, if so, I don't mind if he resigns right away. But I thought I could get into Kathy's company at that time. Haha, you're full of regrets. I told you to listen to my advice. I really regret it. So, could you give me another chance? Looking at John begging for another opportunity, I coldly declared, there are no more chances. It's your responsibility to take charge of what you've done. I added more fuel to the fire while John was feeling down. Oh, by the way, I finished reporting to my parents, so please leave our house soon. What? You've been telling me to get out, but that house is what my father bought for me. The title should be in my name. Wait! I'm in trouble if you tell me to leave. Either way, you're going to move out soon. So what's the big deal? What do you mean? Let me see, you haven't been informed yet. You are being removed from your post in New York. What did you say? You're being relocated to a remote area. At least be grateful that they didn't fire you. My father, who was furious about my divorce, took a quick action. He immediately arranged for John to be transferred to a remote area far from New York. It was also a well-known department for layoff candidates. That's a mix of private and public issues. That's not true. Of course, my father was angry about our divorce, but the reason he removed you from the career track is for another reason. You don't have company loyalty or personal integrity. My father calmly judged that such a person should not be in the upper management of the company. You don't mind if your husband is driven to such a remote area? Ex-husband. You and I are strangers now. Lily, don't say such cold things. Aren't you getting lonely on your own? Huh? How naive can you be? You've been saying that you've been putting up with our married life, but it's the same for me. I've been turning a blind eye to your verbal abuse and affairs because I didn't want my father to be sad. I feel refreshed now that I'm released from that. Lily, don't say that. Help me. Shut up. Do your best in your unwanted duties in the remote area. I left my seat without listening to his words, and I left the diner without looking back once. I was wondering why I had been with such an insincere and pathetic man until now. Afterwards, I got help from a lawyer introduced by my father and got division of property. John, who wanted to hang on to the company somehow, paid the full amount immediately by using up his savings. I was grateful that I quickly received what I could get and completely cut ties with John. He, who had his savings depleted by the payment of damages, seems to be leading a rather simple life in the remote area. The most successful young person? That was a thing of the past. There's no trace of him now, and he seems to have aged all at once. On the other hand, I have been living a leisurely life since I broke up with John. When my previous company found out that I was divorced, they asked me, "We really want you to come back." They recognized me, not because of my father's connections. I was moved by that and decided to return to work. I've always liked my job, so I had no hesitation about going back. Perhaps because my father feels guilty about introducing me to a good-for-nothing man, he keeps bringing me potential suitors. But I'm turning them all down. If a good person appears someday, I might feel like getting married. But for now, I just want to enjoy this fulfilling single life a little longer. I returned to work and worked hard, so I have plenty of money. The life of enjoying both work and private life to the fullest seems to continue for a while.
Business trip? You just work it remotely and you say you have a business trip. You're just trying to dodge housework, aren't you? It's not like that. I really have work to do. Don't talk back. Just listen to your husband. A year into my marriage with my husband, he never recognizes my freelance work. Worse yet, he verbally abuses me, treating me like a mere housekeeper. I'm the one supporting the household, even paying the rent, but he uses me mercilessly without a shred of gratitude. At this point, I can't just stay quiet. I'll turn the tables and use my husband's threats of divorce papers to my advantage. With the image of his frantic scrambling in my mind, I headed for my business trip. My name is Maya, a 29-year-old employed by a publishing company. My husband's name is Bill, 5 years my senior at 34. We met 3 years ago when work took me to a different region. Bill's job was similar to mine. We both went to local places to sum up the current situation and write articles about it. We both worked in publishing, and with shared goals, we quickly clicked. We'd go on reporting trips together, and even after returning, would keep in regular contact. After 2 years of dating, he proposed. We didn't have a wedding ceremony, but we wore wedding dresses and tuxedos for photos, pledging our love in our own way. Post-marriage, we both moved into the condo where I have been living. Since there was extra space, the move went smoothly. Upon getting married, I thought about pursuing my dream of freelancing. Leaving my job would mean losing benefits, but I wanted to take the challenge on my own. About a week after the wedding, I decided to discuss this with Bill. I brought it up while we were having dinner together after work. "Hey Bill, I'm thinking of quitting my current job at the publishing house." "What? Why all of a sudden? Didn't you say you wanted to work harder?" "Yeah, I did, but I want to try freelancing." "Freelancing? You're going to become an independent reporter?" "Yes. I want to work freely without being constrained by the company's policies." I candidly shared my genuine feelings. I thought Bill, being in the same industry, would surely understand. But then, what came out of my husband's mouth wasn't encouragement, but mockery. Pfft, independence? Really? Come on. You know that's not gonna happen. Why? How can you be so sure if I haven't even tried? You're dreaming too big. The only reason your articles are popular is that you work for a publishing company. That may be true, but what? You think you can keep that popularity if you go solo? That's not fair. Look, you're not cut out for this. We're married. Focus on housemaking, not your career. As he ate the dinner I made, he spoke those cruel words as if they were nothing. I was infuriated. Today, even his comments on the taste of the food bothered me. I tried to persuade him more than once, but he was unyielding. He even threw harsh words like, "You can't do it. It's a waste of time." Yet, I didn't plan on taking this lightly either. If I gave up on my dream now, I'd regret it for sure. So I ignored his words and decided to go for it. I submitted my resignation and ventured on a path as a freelance reporter. That night, after quitting my job without telling him, Bill erupted. "What the hell? Didn't I tell you not to quit?" "I'm sorry, but I just can't give up. What if this jeopardizes our finances? Can you take responsibility?" "Well, about that, enough. Listen, I'm only putting $1,000 a month into our expenses. If that's not enough, I'm not covering for you. Got it?" "I understand." I thought he would support my dream as partners should, but reality was much harsher. A rift formed between us, with the one person I needed support from the most rejecting me. Bill, why would he say such things? All I wanted was his support for my dream. Was it naive to expect complete understanding just because we're married? It's painful, but I can't give up my dream here. I have to succeed now more than ever because I chose to act against his will. I strengthened my resolve. His verbal attacks and pressure intensified over time. He started berating not just my work, but me as a person. When I came home even a little late, he would get furious. "What time do you think it is? It's past 7 p.m. "I'm sorry, traffic was bad." "Didn't I always say to be back by 5? "No dinner ready when I get home. That's unacceptable." "I'm sorry, I'll make it right now." "I already ordered delivery. Expect a bill for that later." Staying overnight for field reporting was an absolute no-go, thanks to my husband's rules. So I had no choice but to limit my reporting to places I could visit and return from within the same day. But sometimes interviews take longer than expected or traffic just doesn't cooperate. You can't predict what will happen until you're actually on the scene. My husband insisted that I be home by 5 p.m., but that's not always doable, given how weather or unforeseen circumstances could throw a wrench in the works. That being said, confronting my husband head-on was not an option. He goes to a physical office every day and works his tail off while I have the freedom to work remotely unbound by organizational rules. I guess he couldn't stand that our working environments were so different. Understanding his feelings, I always tried not to provoke him, but I kept striving in my career as a feature writer. Initially, I submitted articles to various platforms on a freelance basis and got paid per assignment, but eventually I started getting direct commissions. I even got requests to start a blog, so in addition to feature writing, I began blogging too. My income skyrocketed as a result. Before I knew it, I was earning roughly 3 times what I made as a salaried employee. Some months, I even pull in more than $10,000, providing more than enough for our savings. Even after achieving a stable monthly income of $10,000, I kept it a secret from my husband. I knew he'd flip if he found out I was freelancing and making more money than him. A year into our marriage, his attitude hasn't changed. If anything, it's gotten worse, and our conversations are practically non-existent. Instead, he increasingly berates me. Then, one fateful day. On a rare day off, I bought some clothes from a luxury store. When I got home, my husband glared at the shopping bags and sneered. "You can barely bring in any money and you're out shopping like it's nothing. Do you even know your place? I earned the money myself, so why can't I spend it?" "Huh, really? Aren't you using the $1,000 I give you every month?" "That's not it. That $1,000 can even cover rent. Why would I touch that?" "Did you just call me low income?" "No, nobody's saying that." Suddenly, he hurled his beer can at me. It narrowly missed me but spilled all over my new clothes. "What are you doing?" Fuming, he shouted back. "I give you $1,000 every month, okay? You should be grateful." "Grateful? The missing rent and all the other bills are paid from my earnings. You must be dipping into your savings, right? There's no way you're making more than me. Believe what you want, but I'm not burdening you, not in the slightest. Go ahead, keep talking. Don't expect any handouts from me later on." My husband threw a can and sneered at me, not even bothering to apologize. I felt like I was reaching my breaking point with him. Several months later, I received a direct request from the publishing company I regularly contribute to, asking me to cover natural disasters overseas. It's an overseas assignment, so a day trip was out of the question. I decided to tell my husband about the work trip. "Bill, I know it's short notice, but I'll be traveling overseas for work this weekend." "Work trip? You're just a freelancer. What are you talking about? You just want to slack off on housework, don't you?" "That's not it. I really have to go. There's no way a freelancer like you has to go on an overseas work trip. How could you lie like that?" "It's not a lie. I was directly asked by the publisher." "Don't talk back. Just listen to your husband." As if I were the one being unreasonable, my husband continued to berate me. Fed up with his irrational behavior, I glared at him. Finally, he spoke, clearly irritated. "Do you even know your place? You're just a reporter in name only, practically unemployed, and yet I still stay married to you." "Stay married to me?" "Yeah, you wouldn't survive without me. If you have a problem with that, let's divorce." My husband pulled out divorce papers from his suit pocket and tossed them in front of me. That was the moment. A vein in my temple throbbed, and a rage I've never felt before consumed me. I can't take it anymore. I absolutely refuse to stay married under these conditions. From now on, I'll use him to my advantage. My husband always threatened me with divorce papers whenever he was displeased. Until now, I'd always apologized because I didn't want a divorce, but I realized that wasn't necessary anymore. I filled out the divorce papers and submitted them while he was out. I also arranged to terminate our condominium lease at the end of the month. Furthermore, I moved up my overseas work trip and headed to my destination that day. I didn't tell my husband anything and kept my messages and call notifications off. Having finished all my work, I returned home after 2 weeks abroad. The time was already past 8 p.m. and the lights were on in the house. I didn't want to see him, but I had no choice but to go home. Taking a deep breath, I opened the front door. Hearing that, a series of loud footsteps erupted from the living room. I looked up and saw Bill standing tall with his arms crossed. Just as I was about to speak, he started yelling at me. You have the nerve to come home like nothing happened. Where have you been without even replying to my messages?" "I told you, remember? I was on a business trip abroad." "Business trip? Business trip? Seriously? As if someone like you, who occasionally works remotely to write boring articles, could ever go on a business trip." I told you, I got an assignment from the publishing company. I even got paid for it this time. Paid? What did you get, like $10? What a fool, spending money on transportation to go abroad just to make $10. Bill kept on belittling me with his crude laughter. But what he didn't realize is that we're no longer husband and wife. He's only able to act so high and mighty because he doesn't know, and his words no longer have any effect on me. Finally, I calmly said, "Do you enjoy putting people down like that?" "What? What are you talking about? If you feel belittled, it's your fault, isn't it?" "I haven't done anything to be looked down upon by you. In fact, I make about 5 times more than you do." 5 times? As if. That would mean you're making close to $10,000 a month. "Yes, that's correct." "What?" Faced with this unexpected truth, Bill's face twitched. He clearly couldn't stand the fact that I made more than he did. Fuming, he blurted out, "You've got to be kidding me, you're such a liar. I'm divorcing a wife who won't even do the housework." Panting heavily, Bill shoved new divorce papers in my direction. With a smile, I revealed the truth to him. Another new form for me to sign. "Yes, sign this quickly." "Don't worry, I already submitted the divorce papers 2 weeks ago." What are you talking about?" "We're not married anymore. Why are you still in this house?" Bill stammered, barely able to get words out. Finally he spoke. "What do you mean you filed for divorce? Why would you do that?" "Why? Because you handed me the papers." "But I didn't really want a divorce." "Well, too bad. I thought it was okay to part ways, so I filed." "You've got to be kidding me. I just gave you those papers to scare you into understanding your role as my wife." Bill grabbed my shoulders, his eyes filled with anger. As I suspected, he never intended to divorce me. He just wanted to intimidate me into obeying him. Knowing this, I chose to divorce him anyway. I realized I could never be happy with him. Finally understanding this, I unleashed all my pent-up feelings. "You think you can lecture me? Do you know how it feels to have your dreams mocked by the one person who should support you? Hold on, Maya, don't call me like we're friends. We're divorced, we're strangers now. What am I supposed to do now? Can I stay here? This is my condo. You're essentially trespassing. I never want to see you again. Leave now." I threw Bill's belongings out. Initially he resisted, but eventually gave in, shoulders drooping. After that, Bill called his parents and apparently moved his stuff to their place. However, due to the circumstances, they refused to let him stay and told him they wouldn't help him financially. As a result, he had no choice but to live on his limited income and move to a cheap apartment far from his workplace. He can't spend money like he used to, and just getting by has become a struggle. His savings have run out, and now he's living a dull life just trying to save money. As for me, I've signed a lease on a different condo and started living alone. The move went smoothly, and now I'm enjoying my work in my new home office. Thankfully, my articles are getting featured on major online platforms. The blog I started on recommendation has also become a good source of income as the number of visitors kept increasing. I plan to continue doing what I love, writing great articles and covering stories from places that interest me. I want to keep my current job, but do it in a way that's sustainable for me.
Housekeeper, what are you standing around for? Can't you even make coffee? Cindy orders me around like she owns the place. Derek, my husband, laughs along with her. To them, I'm not family. I'm just the housekeeper. I don't need a family like this. I've been in touch with someone else. My name is Irene, a 28-year-old office worker. I met Derek through a friend, and we hit it off, especially when we found out we both work for group companies. We got married last year thinking it was fate.
So, we're going next year, right?
No. As Thanksgiving approaches, Derek keeps bringing it up. He wants to go to his parents' home. Honestly, I really don't want to go. And I have a good reason. His unbearable mother, Cindy. I didn't realize it when we were dating, but Derek is a mama's boy, to put it nicely. We're supposed to be newlyweds enjoying the happiest time of our lives. But every morning, Derek calls Cindy before even saying hello to me. After a cheerful chat, he hangs up and finally greets me. It's creepy. When he gets home, he talks to Cindy on the phone until bedtime. I can't tell who's the wife here. To make matters worse, he's been taking more business trips lately. Naturally, we fight all the time. I get that Cindy is important to you, but isn't this a bit much? Derek yells back, "What's wrong with talking to my family?" After fights like this, he usually hands me a pre-filed divorce application the next day. I take it thinking, here we go again. But by evening, he acts like nothing happened. "So when are we getting divorced?" I ask. "Well, I talked to Mom and she said we should stick it out for the sake of appearances. You should be grateful to me." This has become our routine. I wish you could see how ridiculous this all is from my perspective. By the way, there are other reasons I can't stand Cindy. Like the time Derek and I went to his parents' home for a family meeting. She greeted me with, "Oh, you're so cute." But once we sat down, there was no coffee for me. By the way, his dad passed away a long time ago. "Oh, I must have forgotten because I was so nervous," she said. Looking back, it was clearly intentional. When Derek stepped away to take a work call, she said, "You really are cute." When I blushed, she said, "You can't even take a joke. How foolish." Then she chuckled, "I can't believe you thought you could marry Derek with that face. You're so thick-skinned." According to Cindy, I'm not good enough for her successful son. For the record, I also work for a reputable company, so it's not like I'm underqualified. If anything, Derek's company is slightly more prestigious. "Well, if Derek wants to get married, you'd make a perfect housekeeper," she laughed. That's why I've disliked Cindy from the start. Who would willingly go to a home like that? But if I say anything to Derek, he'll just get moody again. Ugh. I can't help but sigh. Last Thanksgiving, Cindy was down with a cold. She insisted Derek come home, and despite my objections, he went back alone, saying he was worried. I spent the holiday with my parents and my loving Uncle Cyrus and his wife. I wanted to talk about Derek, but I didn't want to worry my family, especially my frail mom with a bad heart. Uncle Cyrus sensed something was off and told me to speak up if anything was bothering me. Sure enough, Derek caught the virus from Cindy and even passed it on to me. Both of us were bedridden when the doorbell rang. Dragging my sick body to the door, I found Cindy standing there. I thought I was delirious from the fever, but when she shoved me aside, I realized it was real. She walked up to Derek and then turned to me saying, "Can't you even take proper care of Derek, you useless woman?" I'm sick too, and the man lying there is a grown adult over 30. "The reason we're in this mess is because of you," I thought, but I couldn't say it out loud. At least someone who can move is here, I thought, begrudgingly grateful to Sydney. But then she said, "By the way, I have no intention of taking care of you. You're not family." I regretted even the slightest expectation I had of her. After that, Cindy took care of Derek as if I didn't exist. Derek, instead of defending me, said, "I thought this one could at least handle household chores. Sorry for the disappointment, Mom." I couldn't believe it. He called me this one? A disappointment? Those are my lines. What am I to Derek? Why did he marry me? I pondered these questions, but my fever was high and I fell into a deep sleep. When I woke up, Derek and Cindy were gone, and there was a WhatsApp message saying, "Feel better. So I'm going out with Mom. Get well soon. You're a nuisance." I found it so absurd that I couldn't stop laughing. That was last year's Thanksgiving. Since then, I haven't seen Cindy. Despite all this, Derek acts like nothing happened and says, "We're going to my parents' house next year, right?" I have no idea what he's thinking or how he feels. Then something happened. It was Christmas, which is also our wedding anniversary. It's been a tough year since we got married, but I thought we could at least enjoy today. That's what I thought. In the morning, I asked Derek, "Do you remember what today is?" He thought for a moment and said, "Yeah, I remember." I cooked all his favorite dishes and even ordered a beautifully decorated cake. But that night, no matter how long I waited, Derek didn't come home. Did something happen to him? Worried, I called him and he finally answered. "Hey, where are you? I'm getting worried." "I'm at my parents' house." I was so shocked my mind went blank. "You're at your parents' house? Why?" I was still processing this when he said, "I didn't realize until you reminded me this morning. I bought a cake as a surprise for Mom, and she was so moved when she cried. I'm glad I could spend Christmas with family. You're occasionally useful." I was furious. "You know today is our wedding anniversary, right? I've been waiting for you." Realizing he messed up, Derek fell silent before finally saying, "Who are you to criticize me?" He came home late that night looking grumpy. After a long silence, I broke the ice. "Why did you marry me?" According to Derek, marriage was just a step for a career advancement. Being married is a status symbol in society and at work. All of his bosses are married, he said. He married me because I seemed like someone who would quietly obey him. The proof is that all of Derek's bosses are married. But after marriage, he felt suffocated with less time for Cindy. He said he's only staying married to protect his reputation. He admitted that bringing up divorce papers was just for the fun of seeing me distressed. However, he told me that he was just doing it without getting divorced because it would affect his reputation if he divorced me right away. At this point, I was completely over him. "I can't do this anymore," he retorted. "Who cares what you think? Just keep being a housekeeper. I talked to Mom and I'll be moving back home and commuting from there." Luckily, our place and his parents' home aren't too far apart, so commuting isn't an issue. I vehemently opposed living with his parents, but he insisted on living near them. Fortunately, he moved back to his parents' place, so Cindy never came to our house. "I want a divorce," he said. "Go ahead and try," and left with a few belongings. After he left, I contacted someone. For the next few days, life was peaceful. The house felt lighter without Derek. But the day before Thanksgiving, I got a call from an unexpected Cindy. I thought it was a wrong number, but when she called again, I answered. She was unusually polite. "Sorry to bother you. Would you like to spend Thanksgiving together? It's lonely being alone and we should get along." It was unlike anything Cindy had ever said. When I visited their home that day, she greeted me with a smile, which felt creepy. Derek was in the living room, but avoided eye contact. Cindy said, "I heard from Derek that divorce isn't good for public image." She was smiling, but her eyes weren't. She was desperate to keep us from divorcing, even if it was just for show. "Do you consider me family, Cindy?" For the first time, I talked back. She flinched but recovered, saying, "Of course, Iris." I burst into laughter. "You can't even remember my name and you call me family?" She had never called me by name. It was always housekeeper, or at worst, hey. Angry at my audacity, she snapped, "Enough, Derek, get rid of this stupid housekeeper." Derek seemed to be pondering about his career. "Did you get a call from the boss? It must be about a promotion." "Well, you might be right. Listen, Irene, if you keep talking like that, I'll divorce you." "Derek, you're getting promoted soon. Unlike a failure like you. He'll need a wife from a good family this time." It appears that Derek got a personal call from his boss. "Oh, really?" I replied. "If you get it, then act like a housekeeper and do your job. What are you standing there for? Can't you even make coffee?" Cindy said. So I quietly made coffee, slammed the mug on the table, and dropped a bombshell. "Who are you talking about?" being a wife or a housekeeper. I'm a stranger to you now, so I'm leaving. Both of them looked shocked. What do you mean? Derek asked. I already filed for divorce. You can't just file on your own. Forgery is a crime. Did you commit a crime? He yelled. What are you talking about? You had 10 divorce papers at home. It was great for practice. Besides, you told me to file if I could, so I did. Derek seemed to remember and looked regretful. But he quickly regained composure and said, I'm future executive. You'll be the one regretting. He continued to insult me, calling me a leftover in my 30s, among other things. Annoyed, I said, if you're unhappy with the divorce, let's go to court. I've recorded your verbal abuse, so it won't look good for you. Oh, and this conversation too. Looking forward to our next meeting, and left. Days later, I went to a certain place. I had taken a day off from work. I had an appointment, so I was let in right away. When I entered the room, there was someone looking surprised. It was Derek. Sitting a little away from him was his direct boss, the department head. What are you doing here? Ignoring Derek, I walked straight to the department head and sat across from Derek. The room fell silent, and the department head began to speak. Derek, is it true you got divorced? Derek hesitated for a moment and then started spouting nonsense. I've never been happy since I got married. She doesn't do housework because we're a 2-income family and she even takes all my salary. I've reached my limit. That's a complete lie. When we got married, Cindy had imposed strange conditions on me. First, to be perfect at housework and to give all my salary to Derek. I thought I had been doing as told. I cleaned and even prepared balanced meals, considering Derek's health. Derek would give me a small allowance and take the rest. So I had no money to spend freely. So everything this man is saying is a complete lie. The idea that housework is solely a woman's job, regardless of whether it's a 2-income family or a housewife, is absurd. I did get divorced, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with me. I'm the victim for marrying a crazy woman, Derek rambled on, taking advantage of our silence. So I'd like to accept the promotion. Hearing that, the department head responded, You seem to be misunderstanding something. Whether an employee is married or not, I never change my evaluation based on that. What you just said suggests you see your spouse as nothing more than a tool, doesn't it? Derek remained silent. Don't you have anything to say to me? I asked. Derek scoffed. What? I'm the one who should be thanked for marrying someone like you. The department head began to speak softly. He has a younger brother, and watching his younger brother's marriage makes him happy. His younger brother has always been sincere and kind, and his sister-in-law may not be physically strong, but she's devoted and always smiling. They have a daughter, and she's grown up to be a good, honest child. Probably because she's been watching her parents. The department head and his wife couldn't have children, so they think of their niece as their own daughter. Derek looked indifferent to the story. That's precisely why I can't forgive you, said the department head, his face turning red with anger. Then I decided to reveal a truth I had kept from Derek. It's okay, Uncle Cyrus. Hearing that, Derek exploded. What are you thinking? Calling the department head uncle is disrespectful. See, she's crazy. The department head looked at him coldly. The one being disrespectful is you. You've been calling my lovely niece crazy. It's nothing but unpleasant. What? I've kept quiet, but this man is my dad's older brother. In other words, my uncle. The story of Uncle Cyrus told about his younger brother's family was actually about my family. Uncle Cyrus and his wife, who couldn't have children, have always cherished me, their niece, as if I were their own daughter. When I first met Derek and found out he was under Uncle Cyrus, I was genuinely surprised. I debated whether to tell him, but I was working in a group company and didn't want to be accused of nepotism, so I kept it a secret. Of course, I joined my current company on my own merit. No one knows that Uncle Cyrus and I are related. Our last names are common, so Derek probably never thought twice about it. I had asked Uncle Cyrus to keep it a secret until I said something. You might think we would have met at family gatherings, but we never even had a wedding ceremony. Officially, we said we didn't have time or that I was too shy, but the real reason was different. A wedding is a waste of money, Derek and Cindy had said. He probably didn't want to spend time and money on me, whom he saw as nothing more than a housekeeper. I wanted to wear a wedding dress too. My mom looked so beautiful in the pure white dress she wore in the wedding photo with my dad that's been displayed in our living room for many years. I had dreamed of that moment since I was a little girl. When my parents offered to help financially, she said, "Are you kidding me? Both parties should contribute to that. Well, I definitely won't." So we only had a small family dinner with just our parents. By the way, Derek didn't even offer to pay for the small family dinner, so I paid for it all. My parents gave me some money afterwards, saying I should keep it. I chose the place for the small family dinner, but Cindy made a snide comment. "This place is mediocre." The day after the dinner, my mom called and said, "Irene, are you sure you want to marry Derek? His mom seems a bit off too. We're really worried." I was also feeling uneasy about Derek's transformation. He was kind when we were dating, but now I realize he was probably just desperate to secure a convenient housekeeper. That's what I realized now. Back then, I was naive enough to think he would go back to being the Derek I knew and protect me from Cindy. "Thanks for worrying, but Derek is usually very kind. I'm sure he'll protect me," I assured my parents, who didn't press the issue after that. However, I had asked Uncle Cyrus to keep an eye on Derek. Learning the truth, Derek was visibly shocked. "There's no chance of a promotion. I can't forgive how you've treated Irene, but you've done something else unforgivable, and you know it," Uncle Cyrus said. Derek went pale. I couldn't care less what happens to him. "Goodbye. We'll never meet again," I said and left the room. Later, Uncle Cyrus told me a shocking truth. Derek had been taking day trips with Cindy under the guise of business trips and charging all the expenses to the company. Because Derek was vigilant at work, the checks were lax. What surprised me more was that Cindy had suggested it. Derek was fired, and Cindy is also under investigation as an accomplice. I couldn't care less, but I was utterly disgusted. I heard they'll be returning home soon, so I decided to sue them for emotional distress. I know they've been hoarding money, so I intend to make them pay. As for me, I was recently promoted to the first female managerial position. I thought I had given up on marriage, but I was introduced to the son of one of Uncle Cyrus's friends, and we've been spending more time together. He proposed to me recently, and I met his parents, who are very kind and remind me of my own parents. I'm very happy now.
You didn't have to get so angry about it. It was just a misunderstanding about the child.
I was beyond angry and appalled that my husband could seriously say such a thing. I wondered how I could make him understand. As I was contemplating my response, I heard a voice from the seat behind us. "Hey, can you believe that? This guy is the worst. I don't even want to breathe the same air as him." As I turned around, I saw a young couple. My husband, realizing they were talking about him, stood up. The girl stared straight at him and began to speak again. "My name is Linda. I'm a 28-year-old homemaker. This is the 3rd year of my marriage to my husband, Robert. Even after 2 years of marriage, I couldn't get pregnant, but around the time we were discussing visiting a gynecologist next month, I found out that we were pregnant. During my pregnancy, my husband Robert took excessive care of me. Not only did he carry heavy things for me, but he also accompanied me whenever I went out. He read parenting magazines, suggesting which diapers were best, and promised to take care of any nighttime crying. My mother-in-law was also very kind. 2 years ago, when my mother passed away, she worried about me because I chose not to go back to my hometown, so she also tried to help me in any way she could. I was filled with happiness, thinking that they would love our child even more once he or she was born. However, reality would betray my expectations. The day I went into labor, I contacted Robert immediately since he was at work. Even though he claimed to be in a slow season, he didn't respond at all. This was the first time something like this had happened, so I endured the pain, filled with anxiety. About 6 hours later, I gave birth to a baby girl, but there was still no contact from Robert, and I was worried that he might have been in an accident. I told a nurse about this, and she contacted my mother-in-law for me. She said she would come right away, so I was anxiously waiting. My mother-in-law arrived at the hospital room within about 20 minutes, and behind her was Robert, whom we hadn't been able to reach. I remembered having contacted him, but he was supposed to come the next day. Confused, I asked Robert, "Robert, where have you been? Didn't you see my messages? You know, I wanted you to be present at the birth. I was worried you might have had an accident." Robert frowned at my words and looked away as if he was uncomfortable. Unable to understand his attitude, I could only tilt my head in confusion. Seeing Robert not even looking at our child sleeping peacefully beside me, I started to feel anxious. Then, my mother-in-law, glaring at me, shouted out, "How dare you deceive us all this time?" "Huh? Deceive? What are you talking about, Mom?" My mother-in-law's face turned red. Robert, as always, frowned and looked away. "My son Robert is sterile. This baby is not his. You had an affair and now you're trying to make Robert raise that child? What? Wait a minute, sterile? Just to be clear, I never cheated on my husband, so our daughter is truly, without a doubt, his child."
You know, I would have been happy with just the two of us, he said, struggling to get the words out. But you wanted a child. I thought that if I could accept that child, everything would be all right. But in the end, I just couldn't stand it.
My husband, he poured out his heart like that. On hearing this, my mother-in-law became even more incensed. "How dare you betray my kind-hearted son? He confessed everything to me yesterday. You're getting a divorce and we will be seeking alimony." Wait, a divorce? Hold on, this must be a mistake. I didn't cheat. If need be, I'm willing to have a DNA test done on our daughter and Robert. Before I could finish, the hospital room door burst open with a loud bang. Startled, I turned to see my father standing there. He stormed over to me and in a fit of rage, slapped me across the face. "You disgrace! You betrayed your husband by having an affair. I'm cutting all ties with you, and you are not getting any inheritance." "Ouch, Dad, wait! I didn't cheat." But he cut me off, slapping me again. The pain in my cheek throbbed, and tears welled up in my eyes. My mother-in-law, my husband, and now my father, they all scorned me. I desperately denied the accusations, but no one believed me. Just as I was about to utter the word divorce, the door swung open again. "Excuse me," a nurse entered the room. "I'm sorry, but we asked for quiet in the hospital. I don't know the circumstances, but new mothers are quite sensitive. This could lead to postpartum depression, so please refrain from discussing such matters." "What are you talking about barging in here like that? This has nothing to do with postpartum depression." To my mother-in-law's protest, the nurse smiled and responded, "Well, if anything were to happen because of this, part of our job is to ensure the safety of our patients. I hate to intrude, but I'll have to ask you to leave." My mother-in-law grumbled and left, seemingly overpowered by the nurse's insistence. My husband and father also left the room, and finally tranquility returned. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cause trouble." "Don't worry about it. Our job is to protect the mother. Besides, I know for a fact that you, Linda, wouldn't have an affair." The nurse called me by my name, and I looked at her. I must have met her somewhere before, but still not able to place her, she smiled at me. "I have lost a lot of weight since then, so I can understand if you don't recognize me. Remember, we went to high school together. Mary, do you remember?" "Mary? No way! Is it really you?" At the familiar name, I was taken aback. Mary was a friend from high school, a quiet and gentle girl. Before she joined our friend group, she was teased about her figure by some other girls. I don't remember how it happened, but she started spending time with us. We shared a love for cartoons and comics, talking about it every day. However, I never would have guessed that the slender, beautiful woman in front of me was the same person. "I can't believe it. You moved away so suddenly and we lost contact. I have been worried." "I'm sorry, my parents divorced and I had to cancel my cell phone. My mom's family is from here, so I moved hastily. I see. I'm glad you seem to be doing well. Thanks for everything earlier. When they said those things to me, I didn't know what to do. Mary hugged me and stroked my head. It felt comforting, just like when my mother, who passed away 2 years ago, used to do. I'll explain to the ward nurses to make sure they can visit. Right now, you need to rest your exhausted body after giving birth. It's important for the baby too, right? I sighed in relief at Mary's words. But I have nowhere else to go after I'm discharged from the hospital, except for that house. Seeing my gloomy face, Mary made a proposal. Actually, I live still at my mom's old house. We have extra rooms. Would you like to come stay with us? What? At your house? I was surprised and raised my voice. Mary was looking at me seriously. That's right, the current situation isn't good for you or your daughter. And if you go back, you'll be blamed by those people and your dad. Divorce is inevitable anyway, so let's fight this together. I can't stand to see you suffer like this. Tears welled up in Mary's eyes. I decided to rely on her, who was seriously considering me and my daughter. I got permission from the doctor and left the hospital half a day early. I told my husband that I would be discharged in the evening, but to be safe, I left from the back entrance and went to Mary's house. You made it. Here's your room. Please, take it easy for at least a month while you recover. Mary's mother showed me to the room. The room was filled with a baby bed and all kinds of baby gear. Let us know if there is anything you need. I cried tears of gratitude for Mary's kindness. After I finished breastfeeding and had a break, Mary's mother started to talk. I have a hunch about this. It's hard to say, but I think your husband is probably cheating. My ex-husband was thinking the same thing back then. Hearing Mary's mother's words, it felt like I had been hit over the head with a blunt object. But at the same time, I couldn't help but agree, because recently, there were many times when I couldn't contact my husband during the day. He works at my father-in-law's company doing sales. It's not a large company, so they were flexible, allowing him to work from home outside of client meetings when I had morning sickness and giving him time off for every prenatal checkup. However, he started telling me he was busy about 6 months ago, and I often went to the checkups alone. Even when I sent him a shopping list during the day, he often didn't read it. I didn't suspect him of cheating because he said he was busy and he was home every night, except when we were invited to my in-laws' house. A private investigator who helped me back then is my relative. He can introduce a lawyer as well. If nothing comes out of the investigation, that's good. But don't you want to know why he suddenly said those things? I nodded at her words. Mary's mother immediately contacted that person and they started the investigation the next day. About 2 weeks later, the information that the detective brought was just as Mary's mother had said. I can't believe this is happening. I burst into tears and Mary held me until I calmed down. The woman my husband cheated on me with was in her early 20s. She seemed to have joined my father-in-law's company half a year ago. She was a stunning beauty and all the men in the office were head over heels for her. Apparently, my husband was no exception. He ended up driving her home from a company-held summer party when she had too much to drink, and that's when their physical relationship started. After that, they would say they were going out for business in a day, but they would be at a hotel or her place doing God knows what. And what surprised me the most was that my mother-in-law knew about this woman and even welcomed her. Apparently, she had been hoping for a granddaughter and dreamed of beautiful children when she found out the mistress was young and beautiful. She encouraged them to go on dates during work hours and actively cooperated. She even helped cover for him when he claimed to be on business trips and was actually vacationing or staying overnight with the other woman. The woman was even apparently going to a gynecologist to work on getting pregnant. It was dizzying. What a despicable bunch. Linda did nothing wrong. Mary was trembling with rage next to me, stunned. Linda, what do you want to do? Do you still want to continue this marriage after all this? No, I have woken up to reality. I am going to get him to pay proper damages.
That's right. That's the way to go. We are with you all the way. Don't hold back when you're hurting. Just let it all out. I'll call the attorney now. Let's get ready.
Mary's mother briskly began making preparations. The attorney went through the documents as soon as he arrived.
This is unbelievable. Let's start with a DNA test. We'll clearly demonstrate that you have done nothing wrong.
I nodded in agreement. We incorporated a DNA test into the divorce conditions along with providing proof. The response from my husband was a resounding no. It's obvious if they tested, it would prove his blood relationship with the child. His side was trying to avoid testing, but the attorney didn't relent and the test was performed. It was officially recognized that the child was his, and then I demanded a divorce and damages. Of course, I also claimed damages from the mistress. The mistress had only told her parents she was planning to marry the president's son. When they found out he was already married, they were absolutely livid. After they covered her share of the damages, they apparently threw her into a relative's motel. My husband, the moment the other woman was gone, refused to divorce.
I was fooled. The only one I really love is you.
When he said such clinched lines over the phone, I thought I was going to throw up. The attorney did his best, but the divorce discussions weren't progressing. So as a last resort, we decided to have a meeting with my husband and the attorney. The meeting could have been at the attorney's office, but to avoid any violent outbreaks, we decided on a diner a little ways away from where we live. The moment my husband saw my face, he broke down in tears. It was clear performance and I showed my disgust, but he was too absorbed in his own crying to notice.
Now, about the divorce, why the hell is a stranger pushing the conversation forward?
My husband's scream echoed through the diner.
Well, he is my lawyer, isn't he? Don't yell, you're causing a scene in the restaurant.
At my words, my husband looked dumbfounded for a moment but quickly broke into a laugh.
Come on, we aren't divorcing, so why need a lawyer? Send him home and let's talk about our future, just the two of us. Come on, stop being stubborn and come back home. Your mother is waiting too. It was just a misunderstanding about the kid. You don't have to get so upset, do you?
I was beyond angry at my husband, who could say such things in earnest. I wondered how I could make him understand. I was thinking of a reply when, "Hey, can you believe it? That guy? He's the worst. I don't want to breathe the same air as him." I turned towards the voice coming from the seat behind us, and there was a young couple. Realizing that they were talking about him, my husband stood up, but the girl just looked at him straight in the eye and said, "How can such a jerk really exist? Hey, promise you won't turn out like him."
Of course. He is not only a failed man, but a failed human being too.
Being ridiculed by someone much younger, my husband's face turned red with anger.
What could you kids possibly know? Adults have their own circumstances. Stay quiet.
How can you deny your wife and child? What kind of circumstances can justify that? I don't understand and I don't want to. The high school girl snapped back at him, and my husband was left speechless. I handed my husband the divorce papers and documents detailing alimony and child support. There is no point talking to you anymore. If you won't sign this here, shall we meet in court?
Court? Wait a minute. Don't talk like that. If this goes to court, it could affect my father's company's reputation.
The company of the man I'm divorcing is no longer of my concern. Hearing my words, my husband sank to the ground. He signed the papers in front of him and stumbled out of the restaurant. Afterwards, I submitted the divorce papers and was granted a divorce. I received a lump sum for child support and alimony, which helped cover my immediate expenses. As I was looking for a rental using that money, I was stopped by Mary. Mary confessed that she could not have children and did not have a desire to get married, but she loved children and wanted to at least witness their birth, so she became an OBGYN nurse. I know it's a presumptuous request, but I would like to raise a child with you. Can I help you until you're settled in your life? I was very grateful for Mary's offer and gladly accepted. While my child was small, I decided to live at Mary's place. When I asked her why she helped me, she told me that I had protected her when she was teased a long time ago. When I said I didn't remember that, Mary laughed and said that was the good part about me. My father, who had made a nonsensical excuse when he learned the truth, was promptly cut off. About 2 months later, he sprained his ankle falling down some stairs. He called me asking to take care of him because he couldn't move, but I hung up after saying, "We have cut ties." Although parenting was overwhelming, I decided to live my life to the fullest while protecting my daughter.